Did I get a tape from you or something? Did I buy a
CD? You can watch it online. I don't know.
Later?
Yeah.
Oh, it will be online?
Yeah.
I learn?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So if I leave in the middle, I can continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but be in touch by email so I can use like if you can I can show you where it is.
Yeah, you have my email. It's just in the list.
So email.
You mean it's not going to be on automatic? I thought it's on automatic.
Yeah, that's one.
Okay, how's it going?
No, who would you say your my nephew Spanish?
Actually, I wanted to ask you how you know. Enjoy this. Makes you. Oh, making those parties?
I just thought
they were there.
but I don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is green. And he knows it's like, yeah, but she's this is Minhag.
I actually starts your week, right?
We know you got to see Jacob sometimes keeping very sharp.
I went to the last country. Yes, it's really nice. Very nice.
Yeah, he was there.
And he also speaks on Wednesday morning. I know.
Yeah, but if you can't go to that one, he's at least there, I'm sure.
Yes? He refused the whole parsha?
I didn't know he started
The week that we did
Yesterday I cooked potato.
What time did it start?
Like this time.
Oh, you mean Friday night?
No.
Oh, Shia time.
Yeah, Shia time. I'll be back Friday.
You wouldn't expect that.
Anyone wants to buy a class test?
Yeah, I do.
They have a list of all the public orders. A half hour, right? Now I went 15 minutes.
Yes, how are you before?
Yeah.
Trying to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes she doesn't have.
Yeah, that's great. And it's just not
That's true.
Better for everybody.
Oh, you just take a picture, you didn't get a card.
The video that you made.
I don't know, I usually just give card everybody now.
The first video I had in my house for holidays.
Just one card?
I wish I learned that.
And for the whole card, we go across it, and then I have to look at it, and you have to
You can just go
You're welcome.
No, I think that works. Where'd you get the
Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah, you can cross it for today. Yeah, and then practice that.
She has where is she? No. Wherever you need to. I would want to really want to go back. I know it's something. When you're used to it, not twice a week. No,
Please excuse the delay.
Oh, I know.
There was no key to go into the office this morning, so I had to find somewhere else to just make some copies.
Can I get this later online, right? I can get this online and leave early?
I'm not sure, you have to ask her. So in today's I would like to talk about, in today's parsha, two ideas. One is a problem, and one is a solution. Two issues that are related this week that continue, as we will uncover and discover in today's class, that continue to be an issue. Not just they were when it happened, but it's an issue that takes place over time in every generation. There is something very unique this week that does not happen every year. And the copies, everybody just got 2 papers? Yeah? Okay. Okay, perfect. What's unique about this week that doesn't happen every year is the haftarah of this week's parsha. The haftarah this week, which we'll turn to soon, is the famous story of Eliyahu Bahar Carmel, Eliyahu on Mount Carmel, when there is a showdown between our faith, the faith of Avraham, the faith in one God, and the faith of many people at that time in the northern kingdom of Israel. They believed in pagan gods. They had an idol called Baal. They had an Avodah Zarah called Asherah. They had false prophets that were the prophets of these pagan worships and beliefs. And there was a showdown between the faith that's known as Judaism and the other faiths that lured people at that time. It's a fascinating haftarah that, it's wrong to say unfortunately, but we don't read most years, because usually this time is almost Purim time, and it's Parshas Para, and we have special haftarahs that we read in the few parshias around Purim, Para, Zachar, Shkalim, HaChaydash. We only get to read it when it's a leap year like this year. So most years we don't read this story. This year we do. So of course I'm going to talk about it, because even if we have a class next year, I might not have the opportunity. I can't tell you about last year's haftarah. That's one issue. We have, as I said, a problem, a theme that we're going to uncover that seems to be a problem in the parsha and in the haftarah, and we're going to relate the two to each other. In general, the haftarahs are connected and relate to the parshias, but this week it's so clear how it relates. What's the story in our parsha? I mentioned that we'll talk about the Egel. If you turn to page, where is it? Chumash. Page 570. I'm sorry, page 566. That's where it is. It's following the tragic story of the Egel. The people that came out of Mitzrayim, that have witnessed the Eibishter. By the time the sea was split, we learned that all the Jews were on the levels of Nevi'im and Nevi'ais. They all saw the Eibishter, so to speak. They all had visions of Ruchnias that in later times only a Navi would have. And yet these people, tragically, were faced with a dilemma, were faced with a crisis, were faced with an issue that they did not know how to resolve. Whatever that issue was, there are many interpretations. And at that moment, they failed by making the Egel Hazav. The page I asked you to turn to is the response to the Egel Hazav. Page 566. When the Eibishter tells Moshe, go down from the mountain. And we know, before I read it inside, the exchange, because everybody knows the story, the exchange that happens between Moshe and the Eibishter, the dialogue, whether the Jews will be destroyed or not destroyed, whether the Yidden will overcome this failing or not overcome. But there's a larger question with the whole story that I want to address, without going into all the details yet. When you read, and we have it here, we have it in Dvarim, this story of the Egel Hazav, every year Yom Kippur we don't wear gold not to remind us of the Egel Hazav. Throughout the year, throughout history, different episodes that happened were always traced back to the sin of the Egel Hazav. there were only 3,000 people that partook of the Egel Hazav. When you read the Chumash and he punishes, they kill the Jews that performed this idol worship, there were only 3,000 people that were killed. This is an overarching question. Without getting into any of the details, what is this story? There seems to be an exaggerated response. If you wouldn't know the numbers, you would think the entire Jewish people, millions of them, or close to millions of them, all went off the right path. Because there were a few million people at that time. When you do the calculations, how many people came out of Egypt and how many were present? 3,000 people were killed for participating in this sin. So what's the big deal if 3,000 people did it? How do we address an entire nation on behalf of a sin that's transgressed by 3,000 people? That is the big question that I want to start with.
I was just reading that the Erev Rav was 5 times as many as the Yidden.
There are all types of cheshbainas, but the bottom line is, when he says we're going to kill every person that was involved, the Torah gives us a clear number. 3,000. It's in one of the psukim later on in the parsha. It says 3,000 people. It's almost like we have this entire story, and then we read a few psukim later, and it's 3,000, and the balloon is popped.
That time, one time.
3,000 people that were
a little bit punished.
No, 3,000 people that were involved. When you get to the end of the story, something doesn't add up. We talk about, look at 566. Vayomer Hashem, Vaydaber Hashem Moshe. Hashem tells to Moshe, Pasuk Zayin, Lech reid, go down from the mountain, Ki shiches amcha, because your nation, your people. He doesn't say a few Jews, a few thousand, but in proportion, that's nothing. Asher halisa maretz Mitzrayim. If you talk today about secular Jews, religious Jews versus secular Jews, we talk about numbers in the millions. Millions of secular Jews, 1 million Orthodox Jews. Imagine if the entire Jewish people were religious. That's the way it was. And there was one place in the world, 3,000 people. What's 3,000? That's not even a number. It's not a percentage. Kishiches amcha, your nation has destroyed. The Sharlisa that you took out of Egypt. Saru maher meneda. He talks about the nation, how they went off. How does he talk about that? That's the first question. The second question I want to address is in the Haftarah. If you turn to page 1416, 1416. What is the story of this week's Haftarah? The ancient land of Israel was split into 2 kingdoms, 1416. Parshas Kisisa. By the way, in this Chumash, you'll notice that if you turn the page, it says Ashkenaz, right when it starts, Ashkenazi communities begin here, and then you turn the page, it says Chabad and Sephardic communities begin here. The story of the Haftarah begins where Chabad, where we begin to read it. The first part, which is Malachim, is the background of the story. What happened before the story? There were events that unfolded. The story was the climax. Briefly, I will tell you, Israel was split at that time into 2 kingdoms. The southern kingdom, the northern kingdom. The southern kingdom was the kingdom that was ruled by a son of Shlomo HaMelech. The Beis HaMikdash was there. That was the traditional kingdom that hasn't changed. The northern kingdom was a kingdom that at this time was led by an evil king, Achav, whose wife, a Gentile woman, although she married him, retained her initial pagan beliefs. She never truly embraced the values of Judaism, a belief in one God. She still had her immoral and pagan idols. Now, I mentioned this way back. There was a problem that the northern kingdom faced. You see, if the Beis HaMikdash is in the south, and all the Jews will always go to the Beis HaMikdash, and the south is ruled by another nation, another leadership, then the Jews will subscribe and be loyal to that leadership, to that authority, to that kingdom, the kingdom of David, Shlomo, and his son. So the problem, the religious problem that will keep the people faithful, was addressed by introducing idols to their kingdom, by telling the people, you no longer have to go to the Beis HaMikdash. We have our own. They created at that time 2 golden calves that were put at the 2 sides of their kingdom. Now it's interesting. The Farshim explain it possibly was not idol worship initially. In the Beis HaMikdash there were also the Kruvim. There were also on top of the Aron in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, in the Holy of Holies, the place that no Jew can see, the Kohen Gadol only once a year, there was also an image. An image that the divine presence rested from between the wings of the Kruvim. And this king put the golden images on both sides of his kingdom, telling the people, do you think you need to go to Yerushalayim to embrace and seek the divine presence between the wings of the Kruvim? In my nation, from one end to the other, it's all between the golden images. We have a golden image on both ends of the nation. Stay in the nation. You can embrace God here. That was the beginning. The Gentile wife, the queen, embraced idols to the extent that you had here 850 false prophets of the Baal, the Asherah, the gods they believed in. The people went off the true path, and it was completely chaotic as far as the spiritual standing of this nation. It was a complete mess. Eliyahu Hanavi. This is where Eliyahu comes into the picture. A lone prophet. He faces the king and he tells him, you will be punished. Yesh din v'yesh dayan. There is a judge and there's a day of judgment. The world is not a jungle. The world is not ownerless. You will face a reckoning. You are destroying the fabric of the Jewish people. The king looks at him coldly. He says, what are you talking about? We have in the Chumash, we have the Teichacha. It says if the Jews will go off and stop believing in the Eibishter, Hashem will stop the rain. Nonsense. We have rain, we have everything we need. So Eliyahu looks at him and says, really? I swear to you that from this moment on there will be no longer rain in the kingdom. And from that moment on began a drought. The story of the Haftarah is 3 years later, 3 years of no rain, when once again Eliyahu faces the king face to face. And he says, you see, the rain will come back when I decree it to come back. When you will repent. This was a tremendous act of courage because the king actually slaughtered all the prophets prior to that point. This is the story. Malachim Eliyahu was hiding in the deserts, in the barren fields, in a, what are they called in Israel? A wadi? A vadi? A ravine. It's like a ravine, deserted places, the wild. He was hiding there alone, sustaining himself miraculously, because if he would be around, they would kill him. The king tells him, Eliyahu, look what you've done to the nation. You've destroyed it. People are hungry. People are starving. Eliyahu, full with courage and determination, looks at him and says, you destroyed it through your evil, immoral, perverse actions. Don't look at me. Look into your own heart. When are you going to repent? This is the backdrop, in short, of this Haftarah. Look at this Haftarah. Eliyahu Hanavi tells them, we're going to gather on a mountaintop. Achav. You bring all of your prophets. I will come on behalf of the Jewish people. We're going to take 2 bulls. You will erect an altar. We will erect an altar. You will sacrifice your bull to your gods. I will sacrifice the bull to our God. Let's see which God will respond. The Haftarah ends with describing what they did. They took a bull, they screamed, they danced, they prayed to their gods to bring down a fire. Nothing happened. Eliyahu Hanavi taunted them. He said, maybe your God is asleep, maybe he doesn't hear, maybe you're not speaking loud enough. He drove them into a state of madness. They were cutting themselves with knives. That's part of what they did, self-mutilated. But eventually nothing happens. And now was Eliyahu's turn. It was already the evening. Eliyahu erected his mizbeach. He poured water all around just to bring out the miracle. When he davened, a fire came down. It consumed his curtain. Everybody fell on their faces. It was clear. It was black and white. And they cried out, Hashem hu Elikim, Hashem hu Elikim. The exclamation that we recite every year at the climax of Yom Kippur, at the end of Ne'ilah, Hashem hu Elikim, Hashem hu Elikim, with which we finish the holiest day. it was from here. When everybody fell on their face and they can no longer deny the truth of God. That is the story. When you look at the beginning of the story, it's 14:16. I'm sorry, turn the page to where we begin the Haftarah. Achav sent an order, do you see in the middle of the page? To all the people of Israel, and he gathered the prophets of the Baal together in Mount Carmel. 2 questions, right in the beginning of Eliyahu Navi's words. Vayigash Eliyahu, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, verse 21. Eliyahu turned to the people before they began the sacrifices. Vayigash Eliyahu el Kol Ha'am, he approached the people. Vayomer, and he said to them the famous words that resonate until this very day. Some 2,900 years later. Vayomer admasai atem poischim al shtei haseifim. He turned to the Jewish people and he said, how long will you waver between the 2 opinions? How long will you hop and jump between your Judaism and your Baal worship? Im Hashem hu elikim, if God is truly our God, the one who created the world and runs it, l'chu acharav, follow him. Im haBaal, and if Baal is the true God, if Baal is the creator of the world, if Baal is the one in charge of the universe, l'chu acharav, go after him. Why are you dancing of Allah chasanas? Why are you dancing at all weddings? Why are you celebrating both worships? Why do you go to shul and then to church? Make up your mind, whichever one is real. Embrace it. Don't do both. These are very interesting words. The people were stunned into silence. The pasuk finishes, nobody responded. He had their attention. I'm going to read further, then I'm going to point out the questions. Eliyahu turns to the people and said, Ani noisarti navi l'Hashem levadi. I've remained the only prophet of God. Why? Because the rest of them were slaughtered. Now here's a little secret Eliyahu didn't tell them. There were another 100 prophets. They were hiding in a cave. They were hidden in a cave by somebody who later on would become a prophet, Elisha, Eliyahu's disciple. He sustained them. He had access to food and he sustained them throughout the famine. But Eliyahu doesn't address them. It's interesting. He only talks about himself. I am the only prophet left. And you have the Nevi'ei HaBaal, the prophets of the Baal, 450 prophets. Look at the next 2 psukim, because that's all I'm going to read. Vayitnu lanu. Let it be given to us. Let's take parim, 2 bulls. Shnayim parim, 2 bulls. Vayivchuru lahem apara echad. You will choose 1 bull. Vayinatchuhu, you'll cut it up. Vayasimu alaytzim, place it on your wood, on your altar. Ve'esh lo yasimu, don't light a fire. Vani es apara echad. I will take 1 bull. V'nosati alaytzim, and I will put it on the wood. Ve'esh lo yasim, and I won't either put a fire. We'll have a fair contest. And this is what happens. Look at pasuk 25. Skip a pasuk. Vayomer Eliyahu l'nevi'ei Baal. When they brought the 2 bulls, Eliyahu tells the prophets of the Baal, Bacharu lochem hapar ha'echad. Choose for yourselves 1 bull. And he repeats what he just said. Look at the next verse. Vayikhu es hapar. They took the bull, asher nasan lahem, that Eliyahu gave them. Do you see the contradiction in the verses? Verse 25 says, Eliyahu tells the prophets of the Baal, I want you to take a bull. The next pasuk says, they took the bull that Eliyahu gave them. If they took the bull, that means it wasn't given to them by Eliyahu. If Eliyahu gave it to them, that means he didn't want them to take the bull. Why does it say in one verse, Eliyahu tells the prophets, I want you to choose a bull and take your own bull? In the next verse it says, he gave them the bull and they took it from him. Which one was it? That's a contradiction. That's one question. And then one more question going back to his opening statement. The drama begins with this powerful statement. When he turns to the Jewish people and he says, for how long will you waver between the 2 faiths? Why did he say that? What is the problem in this kingdom? What is the real issue? Jews serve God and they serve Baal. The problem is not that they serve God. The problem is that they serve Baal. He should have told them, how much longer will you serve the Baal? Not how much longer will you go to shul and to church. Why, you as a Jew, why are you going to a church that's not for you? You say, why are you going to shul and to church? And we say it because when we speak, we're not so precise. But the words that are recorded for all of time, the words should have been, why are you serving the Baal? How much longer will you serve this false god? Why did he say, how much longer are you serving both? These are the three questions I want to address today. Number one, by the golden calf, the first incident after Avraham discovers and teaches the world the Jewish faith, the oneness of God. And here the Jews celebrate an idol calf. It was only 3,000 people. Why do we talk about it being the whole people? Number two, when the same story happens in Eliyahu's time, and that's why it's the Haftarah. Same story again. People serving false gods. Eliyahu is the Moshe in the story. The Baal is the Egel Azav. Why does he tell them, why are you serving the false gods? Why does he say, why are you serving both? And finally, number three, who gave the bull? Why does it say, pick your own bull, and then Eliyahu, the next pasuk says they took the bull from Eliyahu. If you look in the Parsha, I'm going to try to do all three today. I'm going to try to address all three questions. Go back to page 566. It's very interesting just to notice. Sometimes we don't pay attention to words. It's very interesting. When the Jews sinned, God addresses the Jewish people by telling Moshe, go down because they've become corrupt. He says two things. Go down in Pasuk Zayin to your people, Amcha, your people, that you have brought out of Egypt. In Moshe Rabbeinu's retort, a few psukim later, when Moshe Rabbeinu beseeches God for his divine compassion, he says, Pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayichal Moshe pnei Hashem elikav. Moshe pleaded before Hashem. Verse 11, Vayomer lama Hashem yechra apcha be'amecha. Why are you angry with your people? Asher I say, so that you took out of Egypt. Fascinating. The Jews sin, Hashem says, Moshe, this is your people. This is your issue. Go down to them. You took them out of Egypt, your nation. Moshe turns to God and says, God, have compassion and pity on your people that you took out of it, that you took out of Egypt. Just wanted to mention that. Why did Moshe daven to the Eibishter? When Hashem is resolved to destroy them, why did he think he can daven? So it's in the handout I made. Pasuk Yud, it's in the handout. You're not going to need the Chumashim anymore. Look at Pasuk Yud. It's the first page. When Hashem said, now leave me alone, Va'ata hanichali, there's more pages here. Va'ata hanichali, God tells Moshe, leave me alone. Vayichar api bohem, va'achalem. My anger, let my anger be kindled, and I will destroy them. I will annihilate them. Your people that you took out will be annihilated, not my people. This is not my people anymore. They've divorced themselves from me. I married them when I gave them the Torah. We stood under a chuppah together. And they've betrayed the sanctity of our union. They've defiled the holiness of our marriage. These are your people, they're not mine. Your people. He no longer speaks as he speaks about his own spouse, about his own people. Moshe, move away, let me annihilate them. What does he say? Leave me alone. And Rashi points out, leave me alone. What does it mean, leave me alone? Moshe didn't say a word. What do you mean, leave me alone? Moshe, leave me alone. Don't ask on their behalf. Very interesting. God tells Moshe, leave me alone. Allow me to annihilate. What, leave me alone? Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say anything. The fact that Hashem said, leave me alone. In other words, don't tell me anything, because if you say, I might have to listen. When Hashem said those words, Moshe Rabbeinu realized an opening. We find in the Navi, I believe it's in Yirmiyahu, when something happens, the Eibusher is angry at the Yidden. And Hashem says, he begins by saying, under these circumstances, no intervention will make a difference. Even if Moshe Rabbeinu would talk to me now, I would not reconsider. Over here, he would. Look at Rashi. Hinichali. It is unclear why God is saying this, which implies that Moshe has made a demand. Leave me alone, since we have not yet heard that Moshe prayed for them. And yet God says, leave me alone. But here, I'm reading in English, he opened the door for him and informed him that the matter indeed is dependent upon him. That if he would pray for them, God would not destroy them. Therefore, God implores Moshe to leave him alone so that he can destroy Israel. That was enough. That was an opening of the door. From those words, he knew Hashem may say, your nation, your people you took out of Egypt. But from those, leave me alone, he knew he did not lock the door when he threw the Jews out. He left a crack. And there was an opening. Moshe stuck his foot in the door. He knew here's the opportunity. It's interesting. We find a few times in Chazal the expression when the sages want to describe a calamitous event, a terrible event, they use the expression like the day that the Egel was formed. The first one is from Masechet Sofrim. There was a king, his name was Talmai, who insisted that the Jews would translate the Torah into Greek. It happened twice. They're both in this place in a tractate known as Masechet Sofrim. It's not part of the Talmud. It's a minor tractate. It's in the back of one of the Masechtas. The famous story of the 72 sages that translated the Torah into Greek. And they all had the Ruach HaKodesh to realize he's going to misunderstand. He's going to begin reading the Chumash, Bereshis Bar Elikim. He will translate Bereshis, some God created Elokim, another God, because they have many gods. So they all in tunes to write Elikim bara Bereshis. God created in the beginning the heaven and the earth. Because he wouldn't translate Bereshis as in the beginning. He would say in the beginning is the name of a God. The God that's called beginning created another God, Elokim, that then created the world. The Medrash lists over here, this Masechet Sofrim, I didn't copy it, lists all the changes the sages made. And incredibly, they all thought the same thing. By the way, these translations are around till today. The Christian Bible, they call the New Testament, is based, they were Romans, they were not Jews, they knew Greek, the languages then, is based off these original translations. They have mistakes in their translations. They all thought the same thing, they all had Ruach HaKodesh, and so the king did not pick up on it. If he would have realized that one made a difference from the other, he separated them to make sure they would not play around. If he would have killed them. Right before this incident, which is more famous, there was a less famous incident, which is what I copied here. 5 sages were commissioned to translate the Torah. It says Maisa, it's in the second paragraph, it's where it says Halacha Zayin, Maisa b'chamishas kenim shekasvu l'Talmei HaMelech. 5 elders that wrote to Talmai the king, as a Torah Yavanis, they translated the king into Greek. 5 wise Jews who wrote the Torah in Greek for King Talmai. V'hoya hayom kasha Yisrael kiyom shenasa ha'egel. That day that the Torah was translated into Greek was as difficult, as bleak for the Jewish people as the day the golden calf was made. Interesting expression, very extreme. We find it somewhere else. The other place we find this is later on. We had 2 great sages, Hillel and Shammai. They often disagreed. In fact, the Talmud is full of their disagreements. Everybody knows, even something like lighting Hanukkah menorah. Shammai said you should light it one way, start with lighting 8 candles, and then dwindle every day till you have 1. Hillel, which is what we follow, said light 1 and then 2 up to 8. They had many, many disagreements. The halacha always follows Hillel, with just a few exceptions. That is a rule of thumb. Whenever we have a dispute between Hillel and Shammai, we always follow Hillel. It happened one time that in the Beis Medrash, Hillel was there, Shammai was there. There was a disagreement, there was a dispute. Hillel, the reason we follow him is because he was the Nasi, he was the leader. He was the Jewish leader at that time. And thus his opinion was the final opinion. It happened at one time that Hillel and Shammai were in the Beis Medrash, and Hillel was outnumbered by Shammai and his students. It happened one time. For whatever reason on that day, they did not accept what he said, they followed what Shammai said. Although he was the leader of the Jewish people, he was the prince, he was the greatest person of his time. That particular incident, in that particular time in the Beis Medrash, they followed Shammai. Not only did they follow Shammai, Hillel, the prince of the Jewish people, was humiliated. He was forced to sit and accept Shammai's words as if he was a student of Shammai. Imagine, the two giants of the Jewish people have a dispute. But that he should end up sitting before Shammai as if he was a student in the Beis Medrash. Two great rabbis have a disagreement. It doesn't mean the rabbi is the other rabbi's Talmud. It doesn't mean they can speak to him as like to a Talmud. He was the prince of the Jewish people. He ended up sitting in the Beis Medrash that day like a student. The Gemara says, I translated the Hebrew, you can't even read it, didn't come out, but in the English I enlarged. It says, a sword was, it's the fifth line, the middle of the line, a sword was planted in the Beis Medrash on that day of this dispute between Shammai and Hillel, that Hillel was not reckoned with. And it says on that day, the second last line, Hillel sat submissively before Shammai like one of the disciples. And it was as grievous to Yisrael as the day when the golden calf was made. The same expression as the day the golden calf was made. Incredibly. That's how, when the prince of the Jewish people is forced to sit like a student, is not listened to, is not respected and honored as deserving of his spiritual stature. Not personal pride, personal honor, but honor for what he represents. The Moshe of his time. That is like the day the golden calf was created, when they did not reckon with Moshe, when they ignored Moshe Rabbeinu, when they ignored his directives, and they went and they found another leader, a golden calf. There is one problem with these two statements, and that is, when you read the Chumash, which we're not going to read inside, when you look at the story of the golden calf, nothing happened on the day they made the golden calf. The day they made the golden calf, nothing happened. Aaron thought that they will celebrate the next day. He says, Chag Hashem Lanu, will be a festival. They gave jewelry, they formed. The idol worship happened the next day. This sin for which God says, I will destroy the Jewish people. Moshe, leave me alone. I want to annihilate them. Why did God say that? For making a golden calf or for worshipping a golden calf? It didn't happen together. It happened 2 different days. If we want to refer to a terrible event, to an event that has no place amongst the Jewish people, we need to use the most extreme expression. We should say, like the time that they served a golden calf. Why do Chazal, and you see it's not just one time, I showed you 2 times, it uses the expression like the day they made the golden calf, not the day they formed. Like the day they formed the golden calf, not the day they served the golden calf. What is the significance of that?
It's the beginning of the thing, like when we started the balls.
Very good. Obviously, there's more to the story because it was just 3,000 people. And we're referring always to the day they made it, not when they served it. What is happening here? And also with Eliyahu Navi. There is a fight for the soul of the Jewish people. And this is the way it happened until this very day. When there is an issue, when there is a crisis, who faces the crisis? The way they say today, there's the 10% of the people that whatever happens will always do the right thing. The tzaddikim, the people that are isolated, removed, they're not facing any crisis. The people that still haven't discovered the internet, you tell them, did you see what was on Seawell? They say, what's that? 10%, maybe 2%. The people that whatever happens is irrelevant. Moshe Rabbeinu told them, Moshe Rabbeinu. the tzaddikim, the big chassidim, the elders,
The authentic people.
the authentic people. Sometimes it's an age thing. I'm speaking from my family, parents, grandparents. I'm sure some of you have. They're not from the internet age. They don't know technology. They're living pure. Some of them don't even have cell phones. Some of them do with big numbers, so it's easy for them to type. The real simple ones, they sell them the AARP membership. It's irrelevant to them. Those Jews that grew up with Moshe, they don't know an egel, no egel. They say, the young Meshugoyim, what? They don't know what's going on. No, they say a bunch of Meshugoyim. They don't. There's noise on the street. Shut the way. They say, be quiet. It's 2 a.m. What? They don't know what's happening. They're not the people that face the crisis. On the other extreme, there are those people that no matter what you say, it makes no difference. They've made up their minds. You have people that convert to a new religion, convert out of a religion. Somebody makes up their mind. They say, this is my way. It may be wrong. You may not like it, but they make up their mind. A Jew that converts to Buddhism, a Jew that becomes a Christian. Throughout the generations, a meshumid, they called it. Parents would sit shiva. They would rip kriya. Because it's equivalent to physical death, spiritual death. They've betrayed the Jewish people, and it's finished. You can scream till you're blue. It's done. They don't go to shul anymore. They're not going to a different shul. They're going to church. Those people you're not going to talk to either. The 3,000 people, it's always a very small number, by the way. When you're done with the hyperbole, when all the op-eds and all the newspaper articles and all the screaming and talking is done, it's really a small amount of people that have left, that have made up their mind and forged a new path. In the story of the Egel, it's just 3,000 people. There were millions of Jews. It was just 3,000 people. In the story of Eliyahu Navi, it could have been just a minuscule fraction of people that have made up their minds. Our parents were wrong. There's really a Baal. There's really a new God. The vast multitudes of people are somewhere in the middle. Neither extreme. And that's where the issue is. That's the direction that will happen is based on the people in the middle. What will happen in the next generation, the education of the future, the way the new generation will grow up is dependent on those people in the middle, not the extremes. It's a fight over the soul of the nation that can go both ways, that can be persuaded either way. And this is the danger. Because often, the 80% in the middle or 70%, doesn't matter the numbers, are complacent. This is what happens. You have the people that scream either way, that argue, that comment. But most people in the middle often are complacent. They say, is it really such a big deal anyways? Why do we have to make an issue? Let's have shalom. I've seen it. I was in a shul once. And I was a guest in a community, and I didn't care because I was just a guest. I came to do something there, but I was sitting in a shul, and they had their own politics, their own issues, they were their own. But I was the scapegoat because I came, so the two sides were able to give me an aliyah, not give me an aliyah. To me, it made no difference. But there was an elder in the shul, an older man, an authentic Jew, who I said, to me, it made no difference. I was leaving Sunday morning. I came to do something, and I was going to do a Shabbat, and I was leaving. It made no difference. There was an elder man that stood up, and he said, I'm embarrassed by the shul. I should walk out of the shul. How dare you people do this? And to the Gabbai specifically, they were, how could you? How could you? And then I thought he was right, because he took a stand. And then somebody else there started saying, and he had the older person who was older than everybody in the shul, white beard, and he said, you be quiet. Now's not the time to say shalom, make shalom, work out. It's a time to take a stand. You see, the people that take a stand will always take a stand. But the people in the middle that say, why do we have to make an issue? Why do we need to speak up? What's the big deal anyway? That like the complacency, the calmness that comes with it. They can tolerate good and evil. They can go to shul and also tolerate a church. Eliyahu Navi doesn't say, how long are you serving Baal? Those are not the people he's going to convince. They're in it for whatever reason. Then maybe they're making millions off it. They have some other interest. They have some other agenda, a financial interest, some other interest, because they had some fight with somebody. They're getting back at. They fought with a shul. They made a church. You're not going to address those people anyways. But the vast majority in the middle that are complacent, that can tolerate good and evil, Eliyahu Navi looks at them and he says, how long will you tolerate Baal and Elikim? Make up your minds. What is the truth? How can you have both in your lives? When the rabbi speaks, you say, you're right. When the priest speaks, you say, you're also right. And the way the joke goes, and then you look at me, you say, how can they both be right? You're also right. Take a stand. That's a lot worse from one aspect than the person who goes off completely, because they have their own issue. The people in the middle that say, why do we need to condemn? This is what happens by the Egel Azov. 3,000 people made it. But the day that it was made, we don't find in the Chumash that there was a tsunami of protest. There were millions of Jews. These were just 3,000 that were carving a new path, that were opening a temple, that were desecrating in the face of God and Moshe, were desecrating everything that happened to them from being led out of Egypt until that very day. How could everybody stay quiet? How could they not stand up for the truth and say, no, we won't tolerate evil. It's wrong. And just be quiet about it. Not make a scene. Remain quiet. That's the issue. Not the 3,000 people. Hashem says, this is not my nation. A nation that refuses to take a stand. Amcha, your people. People that can't take a stand. How are they mine, God says? How are they my people if they can't stand up for me on earth when it's necessary? By the way, this was what the Nevi'im did. They stood up. They stood loudly. They gathered the Jewish people. They faced down the kings, the leaders, the power, politically connected leaders. They were not afraid. Like Eliyahu tells Achav, you're telling me I'm causing the problems? You're causing the problems. And this is his words. You worship the idols, but when you're in trouble, you turn to God. You tolerate everything. If you recognize God's might, you must remain loyal to Him, Eliyahu says. The Rebbe spoke about this idea 1955, 1956. It's in Likkutei Sichos, the first volume, Chelek Aleph. I believe in the whole Likkutei Sichos, there's only twice that I found that the story of Eliyahu is spoken about at all. Like I said, because most years it's not read, it wouldn't be relevant for the Rebbe to Fabreng. When it's Shabbos, when, Parshas Para, it's other issues. And if it wasn't Shabbos Varchim, it's never like a Yom Pagra that the Rebbe, it's kind of a by the way thing that when it happens was not necessarily a Fabrenga. At this time the Rebbe did speak about it. And he said somebody that can waver between both in a certain aspect is a lot worse off than somebody who's committed to idol worship, than somebody who converts out of Judaism. For a number of reasons. The sin of converting out is obviously greater. When you don't talk as far as the sin, but you talk about the quality of the betrayal. Somebody that can say, I believe in God. I also Baal. What's the big deal? It's a lot worse. He says the person who tolerates both is a person that can live without clarity. A person that can live without truth. It happens sometimes. People genuinely make mistakes. A person genuinely embraces a wrong path. That's a beautiful thing when a person is authentic. Authenticity led them to the wrong place. So hopefully they will be shown by somebody or something a better way, and because they're authentic and care about truth, care about spirituality, they will come back. Like the Rebbe said in the 60s, 70s, the hippies. He said these are beautiful people. They are throwing off the way of their parents because they're authentic, because they want truth. They recognize superficiality. They recognize the vanity of the American way of life. They're looking for something more. They will grow out their hair into ponytails and trip on drugs and look for love and not shower for months and all the things they did. They reject entirely the falsehood of the American way of life. We grow up and go to school so you can get into a good high school, so you can get into a good college, so you can get a good career, so you can make a lot of money and retire with money and then die with money. They reject that. It can't be. There's more to life. We'll go to Tibet and we'll go to India and we'll search and we'll try to trip on mushrooms. We'll search. There is a beauty to that. There is a beauty to that authenticity, because such a person, you can expose them. You can show them like it happened. Thousands of them. They embraced religion. They embraced Yiddishkeit when they were exposed to it. They said, wow, this is a lot more than I saw in my visions on my trips and journeys. And in India and other Eastern religions I was exposed to. A person that wavers back and forth is a person that can tolerate a lack of spirituality. Yeah, I believe in God, but I also believe in being practical, being pragmatic. Just, living life. Come on, you just need to make money. So what's the big deal anyways? What's the big deal if you just go to college and your professor's an atheist and they're going to teach you a way of life that negates everything your parents for generations have given their life for? What's the big deal? You need a job. What's the big deal? That's Pesach Hashnei Sifim. Furthermore, I've heard this from a person, a beautiful young 34-year-old who grew up traditional. He's now a professor in Boston University. A Lubavitcher Chassid. He has a beard up to here, a lot longer than mine, a lot longer. He wears a white shirt, a hat and jacket, and he goes to his university every day like that to teach. When he went for his job application, people said to him, come on, fold it up a little bit, and he looked at them, he being the Baal Tshuva, and said, what do you think to them it looks different? A beard this long or this long? The hat and jacket, who are you fooling? We look the same. It's in your own mind that you think you look better. This was always his approach, and unbelievable his story, how he ended up being a professor, a PhD in chemistry, and his own students, he turns them into Balei Tshuva. The Jewish ones, when he doesn't teach them, they relate to them. He literally is a shliach on campus, without having the official job. He said he grew up in a traditional Jewish school, and where he came from, almost nobody becomes from. And he once told me, he said, you came out of my Jewish non-denominational day school. When someone tells you God, when someone tells you a mitzvah, when someone tells you a yontif, what's the response? Yeah, I know all that. I learned that. There's nothing new. I know it already. The words are not new. It's all familiar. There's nothing you'll show me that I didn't know. For a person like that, it's very hard to become frum, he said. The people that become frum are usually people that were not exposed to Yiddishkeit. And then one day somebody introduced it to them in a healthy, in a straight, in an honest way. And they embraced it. They said, this is incredible. When you grow up, a complete mixture of Baal and Elikim, Western ethics and standards and Jewish ancient teachings. So are you going to teach me a Jewish teaching? I know it already. And I know Baal. There's never clarity because you're not here and you're not there. Everything is good. Everything goes. You never embrace. You never do tshuva. A person that makes a mistake can come back. A person that never makes a mistake because they're always everywhere. Come back from what? What did I do wrong? What am I missing? I have that also. And finally, here's the third point. And he told me about a specific school. And I've heard this from a number of people, an Orthodox day school, a specific one, that was founded to create the best of both worlds. This was an ideological modern Orthodox. I say modern Orthodox, the ideological modern Orthodox. They will give the best of modernity and the best of Orthodox. Yeah, the best of Talmud and the best of the Greek philosophy, etc., etc. He says from this school, almost nobody remained from, let alone became from. It was just a complete disastrous experiment in integrating the best of both. It didn't work. Paischem al shnei seifim. Being, wavering, jumping into both Baal and Elikim.
What clarified the professor? I mean, how did he come to the realization?
I don't know, but he's definitely a smart guy. Somehow he did. He came. I mean, he never really learned in yeshivas or anything, but he spent 2 weeks in my there, here, there. I mean, but you would never know that. He learned. He came. It happens sometimes. Everybody has their story. But he said from all his friends, nobody came. They were all educated Jewishly enough that they wouldn't come back. It didn't work. This is Paischem al shnei seifim. Did I answer the 3 questions I began with?
Not the last one.
Not the last one. Very good. I was testing you. I answered the question about 3,000 people. And while Eliyahu Navi says, until when are you going to embrace both? The same core issue. And this is the Yom Shenase B'Ha'egel that the sages referred to. They didn't talk about the serving of the Egel, the 3,000 people that served the Egel. When they spoke about calamitous events, They didn't say it was so bad like when Jews served the Egel. Because you know what? Only 3,000 people served the Egel. They spoke about the day the Egel was formed and fashioned. The day that the Jews were silent. Guilty of silence. Passive betrayal of the God that took them out of Egypt. Hillel sitting in front of Shammai. People allowing Hillel to be put into that position. What's the story? When the greatest prince of the generation, the spiritual leader of the generation, his dignity is compromised in a public setting, in a study hall. His honor, his position as the torchbearer, the Moshe of his time, when his dignity is compromised, how did the people in the room allow it to happen? As how did the people on the day the Egel was formed allow it to happen? When the sages translated the Torah, they were afraid of the same thing. Nothing happened on that day. Just like the Jews who stood by the Egel didn't do anything. But it was an action. Who knows what's going to happen from this? Us passively allowing Talmai to have his way. Maybe they didn't have a choice. Maybe they had to do it. But the fact doesn't change. They set into motion a chain of reactions that may end up in a New Testament, in a Christian religion. The Torah now became public, in the public domain. You can now Google it and you'll get an English copy. Anybody, anywhere in the world has access. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous. That's a betrayal, a silent betrayal. You've taken it and not stood up. Yaim Shenasa Ba'egel. This is the danger. I didn't address the third question. The third question is, what's the story with the bulls? I began this class by saying I want to talk about a problem and a solution. Everything I spoke about till now is a problem of perspective, a problem of silence. I want to talk about a solution. When Eliyahu Navi stands up for what's right. He gets the people to stand up for what's right. And they finish with the proclamation of Hashem Hu Elikim. What happens? Eliyahu Navi says, take a bull. The Medrash says, these two bulls were identical in size, identical in appearance. They were siblings from the same mother bull. They were identical twins. Eliyahu Navi said, take a bull. And the bull refused to budge. It said, absolutely not. I will not allow myself to be sacrificed on the altar of Baal, while my identical twin is going to have the honor, the fortune, the merit to be the demonstration, the truth of God's oneness. He will show the Jews for all of time. And I'm going to go to the Baal. This is such a powerful medrash. I made a copy and I want to read it inside. It's quoted in Yalkut Shemaini. If on the right column, I'm going to read it in Hebrew and I'm going to translate. Reish Yud Dalet. That's the paragraph number. Do you see it? Bottom column on the right side. Bachru lachem hapar ha'echad v'asur rishayna. These are words from Eliyahu. He says, choose for yourself one bull, and sacrifice him first. Remember these words. Sacrifice him first. I will go after you. Amrle Eliyahu l'neviah Baal. Eliyahu Navi turned to the false prophets. He told them, Bachru shnei parim. Choose for yourself two bulls. Te'umim. What's a te'um? Twins. Me'eim achas, from one mother. Hagdelim al avus echad. What's avus? They you say we grew up eating from the same plate. We ate the same foods. How did you end up over there and I ended up over here? Vehitilu aleim garalis. We're going to make a gairo. We're going to make a lottery. Achad l'sham ve'echad l'baal. One will be for Echad l'Hashem, one for Hashem, and one will be for the Baal. Uparav Sheliyahu, Eliyahu's bull, Hayanim Shachachara, Vahelech was following him, was very excited. The bull in which the lottery came out, that was chosen for the Baal, Niskaptu Kol Oisam Nevi'e Habal. All the prophets gathered together, 450 of them, Arba Meis V'Chamishim. V'Nevi'e HaSheira Arba Meis, and 400 false prophets of the Asherah. How many is together? 850 false prophets. Vekulam la yachlu lahaziz ragli min haaretz. None of them can get the bull to budge. They chained, they lined up, and they said, now 1, 2, 3, 850 people, we're all going to pull back together. The bull wouldn't budge, possibly. Eliyahu, this wasn't working out. Eliyahu opened his mouth. He said to the bull, go with them. By the way, the commentary, the Radva says, it wasn't literally the bull, but every creature, every creation has a spiritual source, an entity, a malach or a sar, and he was communicating with its spiritual master. And the bull responded. And it said to Eliyahu in front of everybody, Ani v'chaverai, me and my friend, me and my sibling, me and my brother, Yotzu mi beten echad. We came out of the same womb. V'godalnu b'mara echad. We pastured in the same fields. V'al avos echad. We ate from the same, in English, a trough. V'hu oila lechalke shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he's going to be sacrificed in the portion of God. U'shmai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu miskadesh alav, and the name of God will become sanctified through him. V'ani, and I, alisi lechelek habal, I'm going to be the sacrifice for the Baal, lahachis es bairai, to anger my Creator. No way, over my dead body am I going on that altar. You can all keep on pulling. And he turns to Eliyahu, he says, forget about it. Bad idea. Amar lo Eliyahu looked at him and he said, Lech imoim, go with them. You see, you remember, first Eliyahu said to the first pasuk, Eliyahu said, take a Baal. The next one, it says they took it from him. What happened? He said, take it, but it wouldn't move. So Eliyahu had to take the bull and give it to them, and they took it from Eliyahu. That's the next pasuk. Amar lo Eliyahu said, Lech imam, go with them. Val yimtzu alila, and they will not use you for anything scandalous. You won't be a scandal. Don't worry. No fire will come down. And then he said, too, a very, very powerful statement, which has a profound lesson until this very day, maybe now more than ever before. Keshem sheshmai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just as the name of God, miskadesh al yedei zeh she'imi, will be sanctified through the bull that's with me. Kach miskadesh al yadcha, so too will Hashem's name be sanctified through you. That's what he said. Just as your partner, your sibling, God's name will be sanctified through him when he will be a sacrifice, so too God's name will be sanctified through you, through a fire not coming down on you, through showing them the futility of their idol worship, through showing them the falsehoods of their ways. You will make a Kiddush Hashem. Go ahead. Go first. You have a schus. Amar lei. You think the bull accepted it? It was a bull. Amar lei, it said to him, V'kach ata yetzani. That's all nice. This is your advice. Shvu, I swear to you. La yazaz mikan, I'm not moving. Achil timsareni biyadam. Until you put me in their hands. I will not walk. I will not take a step. If I have to do it, I have to do it. You will put me there. I will not go myself onto the altar of the Baal. That's the next pasuk. Miyad, immediately, vayikchu es apar. They took the bull. They took it, Asher Nasan Lahem, that he gave them. What does it mean he gave them? Eliyahu. That Eliyahu gave them. This is an unbelievable medrash. The words that Eliyahu tells the bull, just as Hashem will be sanctified, Yiskadal v'yiskada Shmei Rabbah, the name of Hashem will be sanctified and exalted in this world through this bull that's with me. You have the same lot. You have the same portion through what you're going to do with the Baal. Like the frogs in Mitzrayim. There's
But he's being sanctified through shame, and he's being.
But he wasn't sacrificing.
No,
well, here's the problem. What was the bull thinking? I mean, did the bull really think a fire is going to come down on the Baal's altar? What was the issue? Of course, Eliyahu Navi says we're going to. This is the greatest joke of all time. The whole nation is gathered here, 850 people that are about to look like complete idiots and morons. They're going to stand all day and scream till they're blue in the face and nothing's going to happen. We're going to daven, a fire will come roaring from heaven. I need what's the word? I need like an actor. I need somebody to just play the role, to just sit on the altar while they're blue, while they're screaming, while they're cutting themselves. He's not going to be sacrificed. What's his worry? What's he concerned about? What are you getting all bent out of shape? Go onto the altar. What's the big deal? What's to help out? I need it's just a facade, between me and you. Don't tell them, but nothing's going to happen. We know. What's the big deal? That's number one. Number two, why didn't he go? Eliyahu told him, and then he said, I'm swearing, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to budge. Why? Why not? Eliyahu Navi's telling you. Eliyahu Navi says, don't worry, you're going to sanctify Hashem's name. He says, I'm not moving. It's such if you heard this statement from a Navi, he says, you're going to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim Barabim, the greatest mitzvah. Why did he refuse to go? And furthermore, this is what's interesting. Why did he say? He says, me and my sibling, we came from the same womb, we ate the same, The issue is not your sibling right now, it's you. Stop talking about your brother. Stop talking about your sister. What if his sibling didn't go with Eliyahu? Then you would go? It's just about your jealousy that he got something that you're not. He's getting to go on Eliyahu's altar, you're getting to go on that. If your issue is that you don't want to be Avodah Zarah, because you're really concerned, even participating in their false festivities, you don't want to be associated even in their stupidity, then why are you talking about your sibling again and again? Identical, we grew up together, we ate together, we came from the same womb. Why am I getting this? Well, he's going to... What relevance is that? Say you don't want to go on the altar. It has nothing to do with the other one. The answer is because this itself... And, basically the question is, why was the bull so thick-headed? What is so difficult to understand, what I began with, that this is part of the demonstration. You're going to show the futility, while your sibling will, we're going to show for all of time. What's the big deal? The answer is because obviously the bull is asking, why is our destiny so different? Why is our fate so different? Why does he get to sanctify Hashem through his body, through his flesh, to become a carbon for the Eibishter, to become literally consumed by the fires of holiness, while me serving the Eibishter, me sanctifying the Eibishter, will come about through showing a mockery of their ways, through not being consumed. Of course we're both going to serve the Eibishter, but he's going to become part of the divine fire. He will physically be consumed, and I'm just going to stand there and go home at the end of the day. Why don't I have this chus to give myself Al Shem Shemayim? My sibling is going to become divine through the fire. I'm just going to show them their futility and perversions. So Eliyahu Navi answered him. What was Eliyahu Navi's answer? He says, but don't worry. He says, Kashem, just as he's going to sanctify Hashem's name, you will. Obviously, but that's not the issue then. The issue is I want to have the same merit to be physically consumed by the fire that's going to come down miraculously. That's the issue. What's Eliyahu Navi's answer? And this is the answer. The Rebbe said this at a Fabregan one time. Very powerful answer. It really gives a new perspective and depth to what happened here. From our perspective, there are sometimes differences in the activities we engage in. People say they want to go on shlichus, for example. They want to be part of shlichus, to bring Jews back to their Father in heaven. It's a great thing. Why should I be a Jew who works for a living, and gives tzedakah, and has a shir every morning and night, and lives a life where I pay schar limud and raise kids? I want to be a shlich. I want to the whole day be serving Hashem. Or somebody else says, I want to be involved in this activity or in that activity. And often we weigh our values. What's greater? What's more important? What is more divine? Which activity will allow me to be completely consumed by the fires of the Eibishter? I mean, if I work all day, how is that doing anything? But if a whole day I run around and I'm raising money for Chabad, it's just an example that you can relate to, because my entire being, it's not just using my work to live a kosher life. My entire being, my entire work becomes holy. That's what the cow says. I want like my sibling. I want, like my sibling, to be sanctified physically, to be entirely consumed by the fire. Eliyahu Navi answers, of course the cow, the bull knew that it's not going for Avodah Zarah. It knew nothing's going to happen. But this is his point. He says, why should my lot be dealing with false prophets and having to associate with them, while my sibling's lot is to be completely in the service of God? Eliyahu Navi answers him with these powerful words. He says, there's something here you don't understand. There is a deeper perspective. Kishem, just as the name of God is sanctified through my bull that's going to go on the altar and be consumed in fire, so too in the very same way, from God's perspective, from the Eibishter's lens, not from the human or the way you look at it, but from the way the Eibishter is looking at it, there is absolutely no difference whatsoever. You associating with the Baal, sitting on their altar, allowing yourself to not be consumed by fire, allowing yourself through your demonstration, passive demonstration, allowing yourself to bring out the futility of their way, as far as God is concerned, is the exact same powerfulness. It's the exact same holiness, the exact same divinity. It's the same power as the one who is physically consumed by the fire of God. Eliyahu Navi was making a profound statement that was a chidush. From the Eibishter's perspective, there is no difference. Kishem, just as the one who's consumed physically by the Eibishter, we understand is holy. You too, through sitting on the altar, the false altar, you are doing the same thing from the Eibishter's perspective. People want to deal with holiness. We like to deal with success. We like to work with things when the things work for us. We like to teach people that want to learn. We like to bring Jews closer that want to become closer. We like to be the carbon on Eliyahu's altar. We don't like to be the carbon on the Baal's altar. Eliyahu Hanavi tells them, when you see a Jew who is stuck, who is caught up, who has become entrapped in the Baal, your job is not to avoid him and say, I want to be in Eliyahu's altar. Somebody else will worry about that person. You go ahead and do it. Sit on that altar. Go to those prophets. Show them. Teach them. Bring them back. Your job is as great as the bull on my altar. It's not less from the Eibishter's perspective. Furthermore, Eliyahu Navi said, I want that bull to be sacrificed first. It's more important. Not only it's the same, it's more important. Often in chinuch, our children, students, those that learn, those that are successful, every teacher's dream, from when they're in preschool, the child that responds and functions socially, just everything is socially astute, and is clean, and works, and responds. We love them. What happens when the one who's difficult? What about the one that doesn't follow the system? What about the one when they grow up, they're stuck in Baal mode? They're not responding. People say, what do we need to do that? Chinuch. Get involved in chinuch. There's no, where's the glamour there? And in chinuch, when a student doesn't function, when there are people that are struggling with the system, they're unsure, they're stuck between Baal and Elikim, what happens then? Do we neglect them? We tell them, go find somewhere else. This is not for you. We've done it successfully on Shluchas. We've learned to embrace the Jews on the Baal. We need to do it for our own. What Eliyahu Navi says, I want those. Kishem shemai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu miskadesh ha'izeh. Just as God's name is sanctified through that one. God's name is sanctified through you more than that one. When you go to that one who's struggling, to the one who has difficulties, to the one who's unsure, who's confused, they don't know, they need direction. It's hard for them. They can't learn well. They have other problems. They need to be embraced. You need to show them the futility of their way, the vanity of their mistakes. And that is the greatest Kiddush Hashem. It's only that way that you will restore Yiddishkeit to what it's meant to be. Eliyahu's success that day 2,900 years ago, approximately. His success was because he didn't just bring a carbon on his own Mizbeach. He could have just addressed his own Mizbeach and shown a fire coming down. But that's not enough. You need to address the people with the doubts on their level as well. He said, let there be two. Some people will do this, and other people will do that. In the words of the Talmud, fortunate is the tailor, woe to the tanner. To sit in a tailor shop and deal with silks and fine fabrics is a pleasure. To work in a tannery with skin and leather, skinning it off animals, it's a very dirty, smelly work. But you need both. In the Gemara it says, fortunate is the tailor, woe to the tanner. Eliyahu Navi says, you are fortunate because you are making the greatest Kiddush Hashem. For somebody to take a student who's struggling and embrace that person and bring them, show them the futility of other paths, that is the greatest Kiddush Hashem. I want to finish off with a story, a little story. I know I'm over time, but you'll excuse me. There is a person in Crown Heights. He lives here now. I believe he's retired. His name is Rabbi Israel Chaikin. You know he is? Itchik Rifkin's father-in-law. Mrs. Rifkin's father. So some time ago in NCFG, which you all know what that is, release time, the offices of release time, the Hecht family, Rabbi J.J. Hecht's office, that his children now run. So Rabbi Shia Hecht, who's literally dedicated his life to help people in this community, help people all over, without asking for a dime in return. At a few nights a week, he has different shiurim with different young people, different single people. One night to a woman with his wife, and one night to men. And they asked one day, Israel Chaikin, Rabbi Chaikin, he met him. He said, could you come tonight and speak to them? He's a man who's lived a long life. He's been a rav in different places. Can you come speak to them? At 8:30 Monday night, a group of young men. Chaikin said, I don't know. 8:30 Monday night in the office. Well, he wasn't really excited. But he asked him again and again. He said, you know what, I'll tell you. You prepare to have a regular share. If I'm there, I'll do it. If I'm not there, just do your regular. Came 8:30 at night. And he showed up. On time. Unlike myself today. He showed up on time. He was there. He said, I had to come. When you finished telling me, I asked you, where is the shir? For me to show up, I had to come. Why did he have to come? I couldn't say no. And I'll tell you why. When I left Russia as a young teenager, we came to Paris. And we heard that the Rebbe was then in Paris. The Rebbe was then the Rebbe's son-in-law, the Ramash, 1947. He went to Paris to pick up his mother, who came out, and bring her to America. And we heard that the Rebbe is going to Fabrengen that night. We came to the Fabrengen. It was the first time we were meeting the Rebbe's Eidim. They probably never saw the Frierdiker Rebbe. They never saw our Rebbe. And the Rebbe spoke about the previous Rebbe coming to America. What did he say? He said, when he described his father-in-law, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, the Frierdiker Rebbe, he said, when my father-in-law came to America, he established release time, where every week they take public school children. At that time, there were thousands and thousands. And they teach them Shema Yisrael. They teach them Aleph Beis. They teach them to make a bracha. And look what came out of it. There was the Bachram and the girls run the release time. There was a child who was telling his friend at release time that every Sunday he goes to church because his friends next door go to church and they ask him to come along and he likes it. The Bachram running the release time heard about it. A Jewish kid says he's going to church every week. He's going to Baal. They intervened. They got involved. Look what came out of the Frierdiker Rebbe making release time. That here, a Jewish boy who's going to church, and because of the release time program, was saved. Another neshama was saved to the Jewish people. This is what the Frierdiker Rebbe did to make the public school kids learn Aleph Beis. So Rabbi Chaikin said, the first time I met the Rebbe spoke about this organization. When you told me where it is, it clicked. The first thing I heard from the Rebbe was about this office, this organization. How can I say no? Release time, literally the same office. That's why I came. I realized after I spoke to you. What did the Frierdiker Rebbe do when he came to America? The first meeting of Merkez Linyan Chinuch. I have a copy of the minutes to this meeting. It was legal. It was chartered. The minutes of the first meeting of Merkez Linyan Chinuch in America in 1942. At the meeting, on the papers, you have the officers of the meeting. The Rebbe was there. The Frierdiker Rebbe was there. Rabbi Chadaka, other ones. and a few board members. The first meeting was to establish the release time. The first meeting of Merkez Gan Chinuch, when they came from Europe, was to establish the release time program for public school kids. To be bulls for the Nevi'e Habal, to go to the public schools once a week, to take those neshamas, to teach them an aleph and a beis, to go out of yeshiva and go take care of those kids. A whole week you're sitting on Eliyahu Novi's Mizbeach. Once a week you need to go into the public school days to take those kids. And I say today, we need to do the same for our own kids, not just the public school kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Really, thank you for sharing the inside also.
Hold on, if you can't do it right now, I'm saying no. We want this to be.
We're gonna give you
The moderator? He's very yeah, I'm here. Okay. And I kind of need to that just I still maybe just because we have the relative shoes.
trying to raise
I know, no.
There's gonna be
If you get to put away more people take more pictures. Because it's like, what does a little have to
Maybe, I don't know. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Oh, we have the same color. Is that? Oh, yeah, yeah.
But you have to use it when you're gonna use it.
Tonight's just like, we charge 15 per class and then go flying at the time. If you want to come, you're always invited. I personal invitation.
If there isn't a change or something, you could let you know.
What's Laura Barlow gonna be teaching?
Marriage and
When is that?
yeah.
When is that?
Mrs. Burrow was his usual.
When is that?
A Tuesday at 12:30. Brunch just $4. Yummy food and Mrs. Burrow.
Yeah, so then I know.
Every line is like a power.
Always gonna learn. You're always gonna. It's always gonna be new. You know, it's not.
Something you're just-
I hope you keep them going.
you guys take them all.
Yeah, traveling and traveling.
Yeah, it's traveling. I
Very nice.
saw him like last time.
Oh, and the bench too goes on.
Okay, it was recording. Looked at that. Yes, it was.